Hi,
Hey,
hello. How's it going?
good. How are you?
I'm doing good. How's it been?
Yeah, things are good. Um, yeah, I've been kind of taking a break since leaving Hilda Bay, doing some consulting, and I'm working on a project that is actually kind of what I did my dissertation on. So doing some work in the Santa Monica Mountains on invasive crayfish. So that's been fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, awesome. Well, I bet the fish thank you for that. And our oceans are really important, which is
Yeah.
why I'm also studying about the ocean and how to conserve our oceans and our beaches and what they mean to us and the implications that they have onto us and wildlife,
Yeah,
all
that's great.
simultaneously. But yeah, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to be here and for helping my research and helping to potentially provide new insights for my work. That's really cool. And so basically, you kind of already know the gist of everything. I've sent you the interview questions. Um, I kind of just want to go through the questions that I've tailored for your work experience and what I believe you may be able to provide in terms of like gaps in any information that I'm missing for my research, which involves obviously sewage bills here in the county, but looking at it from a level that's like focusing on how it's geographically distributed so that we can focus on areas that are in most urgent need of remediation. Or also in terms of like if it is a skewed distribution across the county, is there potentially an existence of environmental racism going on and how it's affecting different communities in different ways, or some are more impacted than others. And up until now, I've actually been kind of surprised because I feel that my ideologies have been challenged a little bit, and you might have seen with the GIS maps that I've sent you.
Mhm.
Um, I've been looking at the data from the State Water Board where they report on every sewage spill, right, throughout the years.
Mhm.
And so I just kind of pulled their coordinate data, plopped it onto ArcGIS Online, and I've actually seen that more sewage spills are happening in like Beverly Hills and West Hollywood. I'm like, okay, that's a little strange.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm basically in the interview process of my research and just talking to people and trying to see what more information I can gain in terms of just like wrapping everything up and finalizing my final paper. But with that,
Cool.
if you feel comfortable, we can get started. And I do want to remind you that uh, this interaction is being recorded, and just to reassure you that it is just for my own personal review when I am writing my final paper. Because as much as I would love to have a videogenic memory, it's not the case. So
Yeah,
we
no,
are
that's totally
we are
fine
being
and
recorded.
makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
all good.
Alrighty. So, and with that, I'm going to start with the first question. So, I started this project because of a sewage incident that happened last year on Biona Creek, and it affected Dockweiler Beach. And that was significant to me because Dockweiler Beach is the beach that I like to go visit during the summer. And being in the May time, it's like we're coming into summer and I'm experiencing beach closures. I wanted to see, from your perspective, what are the main causes of these sewage spills and why they're continuing to happen, even though we do technically have regulations in place to help prevent them.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I would say primarily aging infrastructure, I think is the main cause. And when I say that, I think you could potentially further split it into like two categories of sort of like um, infrastructure dealing with the whole, I mean, it's all one system, it's all connected, like, right? But you've got the wastewater treatment plants, and then you've got the infrastructure that kind of, like the pipes that go throughout the whole city or the county, really. So I kind of view those, while they are all one system, like there are kind of two different types of sewage spills, like where you have a major incident at the wastewater treatment plant. I think can be, that can be like way more catastrophic in terms of the amounts of sewage versus like ones that happen throughout the sort of distributed system throughout the county, like in a pipe. Now, that's not to say like if you have a main, like a sewage main pipe that fails or something, like that would be pretty catastrophic too. But so yeah, so I kind of think of infrastructure as being both of those. So like aging pipes, aging, lack of upkeep throughout. And then I also think of the wastewater treatment plants kind of similarly in terms of infrastructure. Like a lot of those treatment plants haven't been updated. And then I think also tied into that could be climate change. So, thinking about storms being kind of tying into sewage spills and like being able to deal with the amount of both waste, but then also like, when there's a huge storm that waste, that our sewage lines get inundated with water as well. So I would say mainly infrastructure, and that can kind of, like I said, tie in, have a few different buckets.
Yeah, definitely. And I like I said, I read the article on the Raw Truth, and I know that you were behind co-authoring that. I thought it was interesting to bring up the climate-related factors in this issue because, as we think about how a lot of our infrastructure predates the 1950s, I was almost like thinking about like, were people even talking about climate back then anyways? And, and how can we expect our current sewage system now to accommodate for these new climate and weather and storm changes that are happening when, if our infrastructure is aging and it's outdated, like it's like almost inevitable that this is going to happen if we don't continue to upgrade and keep those inevitable factors that are changing in mind. So I thought that was like an interesting thing that I found from your article as well, because it is such a difference in not a decade, in a whole century.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and like the storms that they planned for in the past, aren't the storms that we have currently, and even the amount of waste that they planned for in the past is different now. So like, I know some like with water conservation, the amount of waste that goes to the treatment plants actually has declined in certain places or areas. So like the initial amount that treatment plant could treat like isn't even, it's like lower, but then you get these huge storms. So anyway, it's just like a lot of different factors to think about. I don't envy the people who have to do it, but it needs to be done.
It seems really complicated, but it's like, it is ultimately something that we do have to pay attention to and take care of. So
yeah, for sure.
I'm trying to do what I can. One
great.
Step at a time, definitely.
Yep. Can't solve it all immediately.
I know. But so for the second question, I wrote, in your opinion, are sewage spills in the Los Angeles County something that we should still be deeply concerned about, or is it the case that we are making noticeable progress to the point where we can just like brush it off and continue on the path that we're on?
I would say, I think there's something that we should be concerned about for sure. I don't necessarily encourage people to like worry about it every single day immediately, but like again, kind of thinking about these bigger fixes, I think is really the way to go. Because I mean, in some sense, you could think of sewage spills as random, um, random events, and that we can't necessarily predict them. Whereas like when we get the pollution from a rainstorm, like the first flush, like we know that's going to happen. A sewage spill, we don't know when or where it's going to happen. Now, like maybe you could predict them with some, because like if you did some assessment of all the infrastructure, who knows, maybe you could actually predict some failures. But I so in that regard, like I don't necessarily think we should be like worrying about it every single day, like individually, but I think for sure it's something to be concerned about, like bigger picture and long term, like that we need to address these kind of systems changes and system upgrades. So whether we're making progress, I mean, I think if we look again, big picture, like yes, we've made progress where we're not like discharging partially or untreated sewage into the bay.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Like after that big sewage spill from Hyperion in 2021, like they were discharging partially treated sewage for quite a while because their plant was so damaged. So if we look kind of long term, yes, we've made progress, but we still have these the 2021 incident, the Bayona Creek spill. There have been some other big ones like Carson, Dominguez Channel, I think. So yeah, I don't know that we're making progress really. It's kind of like just waiting. It's almost like waiting for the next incident to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I'm sure people are like there's folks working on upgrades, but I guess my other thought on that is like as we focus on sewage spills, we also still need to and this isn't exactly related to a project, but like continue to think about how we deal with the weather pollution too. Thinking about the sources of pollution to the bay holistically.
Yeah, and everything is all interconnected, so it is kind of important, even when we think like, oh, this is not related. In the wider scheme of things, it potentially can be. So, I mean, all of that is very valid, and I'll take that all into consideration when I'm putting together like the analysis portion of my research and trying to make sense of the distributions and numbers that I'm seeing. Thank you so much for that response. And so for the third question, I wrote, and I guess this is kind of like a little debate that I've been seeing, because I distributed a survey 123 out to the public, and I was able to get 160 respondents. And what I could gather was that the public here in the LA County seemed to be mostly in agreement that there has to be more like government accountability in terms of like, they need to change the infrastructure, they need a fund for it. Public behavior in terms of like fog, fats, oils, and grease disposal habits won't be enough to help this issue alone, is that the public has gathered from what I can see in the survey. But in terms of the third question, do you think sewage spills happen more because people don't properly dispose of fats, oils, and grease, or because of problems with old infrastructure and poor maintenance? And where do you think these efforts to fix this issue should lie or should focus?
I mean, certainly, like you said, I think it's kind of all connected. So, I mean, I think probably the infrastructure and maintenance is sort of like the bigger issue and sort of maybe more impactful in terms of like addressing it. Um, Now, certainly people's behaviors and maintenance as well on like the personal lateral lines is important too. But I also think, when you have failures in the lateral lines, like it's not going to be as catastrophic as if you have a failure in a main line or in the wastewater treatment plant in terms of like amount of sewage and all of that. So I do think scale matters. So like sort of the most bang for your buck, or sort of the where you might place the most blame would be kind of infrastructure of the not like of the public um, parts of the system. But again, like what people do, it's not like their sewage. Their if they dispose of fats, oils, and greases, it's not like it just stays in their one little area. It can impact. So it can have impacts that are catastrophic, like further down the line. So I do think thinking about it again holistically is important. So like if to tackle it, we need to kind of think about all aspects, and people taking some accountability, or realizing that what they do can have an impact, I think is important too.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much for that. And moving on to the fourth question. Um, do you believe there are more mitigative efforts that could be implemented to help stop our sewage spill crisis? And if so, what obstacles are preventing us from putting those solutions in place?
um yeah, I mean, for sure, I think there's more that could be done to mitigate spills. The obstacles I would think would be kind of what you would assume would be like money and
Yeah.
time and political will.
Yeah.
Um, so in terms of like other efforts that could be sort of doubled down on or done more or better, like and this is some of the piece that I don't know as much about. So I don't know if you've done other interviews with people, but like understanding how the capture process works, like when there is a spill, to like go out and actually try to, I don't know if they like hoover it up basically,
Yeah.
or and they probably put out booms and do sorts of
Yeah.
things so that it doesn't make its way into the storm drain system. Because like, and I don't know if this is like, we can talk about it too when we get to the map question, but like oftentimes the sewage spill, like they talk about the amount spilled and then the amount that reaches a water body. So like, I think for sometimes they do a pretty good job of capturing it before it gets to a river or the ocean. So potentially there's things though that could be done that would improve those methods. So making sure that it never reaches a water body could be something that might be worth putting some research or time or money into. I also think like better detection methods. So I think unfortunately there's a lot of sewage leaking out that nobody knows about, until it becomes really bad. So, like all the pipes that are old and clay have like little cracks in them. And, so I don't know how this maybe a technology kind of thing
Yeah.
of trying to get a better, like quicker detection of when there are leaks or potential problems that could turn into a really big problem. And maybe along those lines, it's kind of also thinking about like how you could assess yeah, I guess detection and maybe, yeah, sorry, along with that is like doing assessments of the existing infrastructure. So I know they use cameras and
Yeah.
all of that, but I wonder if there's other, if they can do it more frequently or if there's different technology. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Obviously, investing in infrastructure upgrades is a mitigative effort that would be good. And then I think also more outreach and education around,
Mm.
some of these kind of behavior, like things that the average person could do, the maintenance, best practices, like what not to flush. I mean, those stupid wipes, that are
Yeah.
all marketed as flushable, like
Yeah.
are not, like nothing is really flushable.
It's like all over
um,
the LA San social media is like don't flush this, don't flush that.
yeah,
Fog, keeping fog on highlight. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's just, I mean, and I don't, have you done a tour at Hyperion or any of the other,
I
plants?
I haven't done like the official tour like in the plant itself. I've only been
Yeah.
to the learning center,
Oh, yeah.
but it's been suggested to me that I go and I visit. I've only read like the documentations and the reports of like the aftermath of like the corrective actions that they were going to make after the 2021
Yeah, yeah.
spill. And I know Tracy was a part of, or like she was authored in that as
hmm
well. So
Yeah, yeah. She was
I
on that task
I've only
force,
seen
and
the photographs in there.
I
So
know that
yeah.
I didn't. I know. I don't think you overlapped with Luke, who used
No,
to be the.
I emailed him though,
Oh,
because he
yeah,
right now he's in state water boards, and I did email him to see if he could potentially
yeah.
talk to me or
Uh-huh.
do an interview with me. But he was very kind and sincere, and he just said like, I don't personally work in the sewage sector, but maybe I
Mm-hmm.
can connect you to somebody else. So
Yeah.
I'm still waiting to see if he'll
Okay.
do that, or I'll just
Yeah.
start emailing others within state water boards who might be more directly connected with like
Yeah.
the
That'd
internal
be good.
operations of all
hmm
of that. So yeah.
But yeah, when because he was, yeah, at Hail the Bay during that 2021 spill, and I think he did one of the tours. But even just like the regular tour when there hasn't been a spill, like the first step when they remove all the like stuff that shouldn't be flushed is like, it's crazy. Like the things that people put down. Well, I guess it's not just the toilet; it could be coming into the storm drain system or like the manhole. Like people dump stuff in manholes, but anyway, it's just like, yeah, it's always surprising like what people will flush also. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I think education outreach, and then I mean the other thought I had around mitigative efforts would be like more enforcement or better enforcement too for when there are spills, to kind of be like a, you can do some of the carrot methods and then the stick method of like punishment, or sort of deterring or spurring um, upgrades by like wanting to avoid enforcement. So, I think there have been a few big enforcements recently and fines, but
Fines, yeah,
a lot of
definitely.
times there's no enforcement at all, or no, yeah, no fines, nothing. So I think it kind of feels like it's hard to get the regional board to enforce sometimes. Um,
Yeah, because from what I can gather, and again, I just know from what's publicly accessible to me, but it seems like there are a lot of like reactive protocols in place. Like we can issue
mm-hmm.
fines, we can take care of the issue and clean it up afterward and try to like get it so that it doesn't go into our waterways or our beaches. But in terms of like proactiveness or preventative long term like actions or plans that are in place, I don't know if there are any, if there are like any in plan. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that might be worth a conversation with somebody from like maybe LA Sanitation, which I do
Mm-hmm.
have some networks there, and hopefully I can
Mm-hmm.
talk to them soon. But yeah, from what I can gather, a lot of it has been kind of reactive, and
Yeah.
I,
Mm-hmm.
I would hope that maybe with more as I continue to uncover more and get more into like the research of like what's going on, and also incorporating like the new technologies that are in place, that hopefully one day it's not like that.
Yeah.
And it can be a little bit better, a little more organized, in
Yeah.
terms of helping to prevent all of that.
Well, I know, and I feel like I think at least LA sanitation and probably LA County sanitation too, they've been they I don't know exactly how, where it stemmed from, but they've been pretty underfunded, or like they haven't, at least for, let's say LA sanitation for right now, like they hadn't had a rate increase in many, many years. So like, I think they were probably stuck and that they couldn't do a lot of these upgrades, maybe at the rate or scale that they should be. So there was just a recent pretty big rate increase. So like that's good, but then it's sort of like, well, okay, is there a prioritization? Like, I'm not following all this anymore, so I don't know if there is, but I think that would be a good opportunity to like for advocates to get in on and be like, accountability in terms of like where is this rate increase going, and they probably have a long list of a backlog of various things, so I'm sure it'll still be probably hard to get like a whole heck of a lot done. But and LA County sanitation, I don't know if I've talked to anyone there, but we used to Heal the Bay, and they probably still do, we would meet with leadership at LA County sanitation maybe like quarterly or so, I can't remember.
Okay.
And it would be like with us, LA Waterkeeper,
Okay.
LA County Sanitation, and NRDC sometimes would be there, Mark Cold. And so like LA County Sanitation, was like way more forthcoming than LA Sanitation. They were just like really genuine, and I felt like they owned up to some of their mistakes more readily than LA Sanitation. And I mean, not that I'm trying to pit whatever, but it just was interesting to see like a little bit of a different way they approach things. And I feel like LA County Sanitation had a really good, like they were thinking proactively, and like I feel like at that time, and I don't know if this is an actual document, but I feel like they were really thinking about prioritization of their lines and like where to focus upgrades, and they kind of had a little bit more of a plan, it felt like to me. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know, I digress maybe a little bit, but
No, you're good. I mean, this is all part of the conversation, so I I receive everything that I can get. I'm like being eaten alive by mosquitoes right now.
no.
Oh, it's all good. It's like you think it's fall time, but it's still
I know,
it's still kind of summer a little bit.
Yeah, it's
So
supposed to get hot. I know.
still have some mosquitoes around. Um, for the fifth question, I wrote, are there any policies or regulations you believe need to be strengthened or updated to make long-term prevention more realistic, within our sewage industry?
I think, I mean, one thing that I know Heal the Bay we would always kind of hammer on was like the response time and notification times for when there are spills. So I think there's still a lot of work that could be done. So whether that's through sort of mandated, like, I mean, I think there already are some regulations in the water board, like in their permit, of if there's a spill, they have to report it, within a certain number of hours. But I think then it's like getting that out to the public. So I think they have to report it to the water board. So maybe having some more like clear and I think they've been working on this, so I don't know exactly where they are on this, but like very clear kind of steps of what to do in the event of a sewage spill that includes like the public component in terms of notification and yeah, rapid information getting out, because like that was a huge thing in the 2021 spill that, you know, it was way delayed. So I think having some more regulations around that would be good. I think, I mean, one other thing too is one, because I worked along the LA River quite a bit, or, you know, freshwater bodies. I feel like oftentimes the sewage, there were sort of different standards in terms of closure and notification around freshwater versus ocean. Now, granted, like a lot of times people aren't in the water as much in the freshwater, but you know, there are the kayaking areas in the LA River. People use the water bodies for various things, for recreation, for fishing, for
bathing.
You know, bathing, yeah, washing clothes.
Yeah.
So I think like also some sort of more consistent and equal kind of footing, or, you know, of treatment of freshwater bodies, I think would be important too. And I think, I mean, I know LA River, like there was a protocol in place for sewage spills, but, you know, again, it was like the sort of lack of consistency of when there would be one that happened. And it's like, even if you have these documents, they don't usually end up rolling out that well in terms of like what happens, you know,
yeah,
like X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I would think in terms of policies or regulations. I mean, I guess I don't know if there's some way to like mandate, you know, whether there's like a sort of lifetime, as the lifetime of something approaches, like a pipes, like that they need to replace them, that there's kind of like a requirement to do that. I don't know. That would be my only other thought too, of like making it a little bit more official.
Yeah, a little bit more like organized, like in a checklist where we can
Yeah.
see like, oh, this portion of the pipelines are getting to their end stage. Maybe let's focus on them and start working on them little by little.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a question of like, what are the current internal operations taking place in terms of actually doing that, and why it is that we waited this long to have them outdated.
Yeah.
Just to kind of get to the bottom of that. But yeah, thank you so much as well for your insight on that as well, because in terms of policy, I am not a big policy buff, but it really helps in terms of putting the whole narrative together of what's happening, and you know, policy is a big portion of that, so most definitely.
Yeah.
And for the next question, I wrote, what would you recommend as the best first steps towards tackling this issue head on, if you had to decide, or if you could think like on the top of your head and be imaginative?
Yeah. I mean, I think obviously like you know, the upgrades, upgrading infrastructure. I think transparency around the upgrades, and like
Transparency.
better coordination also amongst all the different agencies, as well as, you know, nonprofits, scientists, and then communities and like EJ groups. I think there's, you know, I don't know if it's because of like from a kind of COVID really took a hard hit on the Department of Public Health. And obviously they had to like shift a lot of their resources to COVID. And so I think everything else suffered. Then there was like a ton of people retired. But I feel like Department of Public Health has been really absent from these conversations
Yeah.
around sewage spills. And so I'd love to see them get like be a leader in it. It seems
Yeah.
like that's like pretty integral to like their work.
Yeah.
But I feel like they often in the conversations they were often like not they were sort of like, oh, we can't do that, we can't say that, sort of like which I was surprised at, because I'm like, what, I feel like you're the ones that could dictate some of this stuff around like what's okay and not around like beach closures and notification and things like that. um so yeah, I think like some kind of, whether that's like through a coalition or just like better coordination and communication amongst all these different agencies and groups and people. um, I do think like there's a space for sort of this, thinking about like new technology and new methods. So like both for detection as well as like getting the message out, I think would be an important way to do it. I think even if they do some rapid posting, like LA Sanitation is like pretty outdated in terms of like being in touch with people.
Oh.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't, if you look at their social media, like, they don't, they don't have very many followers, or, I think they need a little bit of a modernization.
I'm following because I got to.
Yeah, I'm following them
yeah.
too, but I feel like,
But yeah.
so I feel like they need a little bit of a kind of overhaul or modernization of some of their messaging tactics, and like making sure it's going out into different languages, and I'm sure they do that sometimes, but I'm thinking creatively of like, if there is a spill, how do we get it out to these communities that are actually like being impacted, or at the beach, or live near there. And I know at one point, I think it was LA Waterkeeper maybe came up with this idea, like if there's a sewage spill, something like an Amber Alert, or if you're in that area, your phone, you'd get an alert. There's a sewage spill, or something like that. Like, I think there's different things they could be more creative and think about. So yeah, what else for steps? I mean, I do think it's like a lot of like holding these LA San and LA County San accountable, and also like making sure they're they're doing what they're saying they're going to do. So like, even for instance, the 2021 spill, they had that report that had like, a ton of things they're going to do.
Corrective
action. I know they made progress in some, but I'm like, I don't know if there's been an update recent at like any time recently of like where they're at with all those upgrades.
Yeah.
So, and then it's kind of like, it sort of falls out of the public eye. And so like, those are the places where groups like Heal the Bay and LA Waterkeeper and others can like push and be like, what are you, have you done that?
Yeah.
So making sure that like those things happen, I think is important, as well as then communicating that back to the public.
Yeah, just kind of holding those promises accountable and making sure that they follow through with them.
Yeah.
And I do hope to communicate to some engineers from LA San. So I do have to approach it in a very like delicate way. But at the end of the day, I have to just listen to what people have to tell me, right, and come at it from like a very neutral standpoint. So I just want to know exactly what's going on their end. And then from there just kind of builds the picture of everything that's happening. But yeah, I hope to be more informed on that soon. They've been a little wishy-washy in terms of like getting back to me, but I have a contact, so I'm feeling pretty good. I think I'm gonna get in.
Okay.
Get more info and maybe report back and share any of my findings with you as well once I get to
Yeah.
the end of the
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
For the mapping portion of
Mm-hmm.
this whole thing, so I noticed from the sewage spill reports, right? They will report on like where it happens and did it reach the beach, how is it remediated, corrective actions moving forward, and then they have the latitude and longitude of where it took place. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, from those reports, I've been pulling the latitude and longitude from all sewage spills that they have there on record, archived throughout the past 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
just to keep it consistent with Heal the Bay's report that was released in the 1 year anniversary of Hyperion's 2021, which was like titled like Q&A, what you need to know about the Hyperion sewage spill. Um, in that article, it was mentioned that within the past 15 years, here in the LA County alone, there's been 42 million gallons that have spilled into our local waterways and our oceans. So I pulled data specifically from the LA County, and I also filtered out any spills that have taken place within the last 15 years and nothing before that.
Okay.
And
Mm-hmm.
that is pretty much what I was able to come up with once I had imported that coordinate data to my GIS maps. I created an aggregate map and a heat map just to kind of give myself a little bit of different visuals of what's going
Mm-hmm.
on. But like looking at it, it's like it's so undeniable. Like it looks very strange, like the skews that are happening, and I it makes me wanna think and wonder like why is it that like these more affluent areas that are like Beverly Hills and Westwood and West Hollywood are the
Mm-hmm.
ones that are showing up as like neon highlighter yellow, most reports happening. And not to just stem it off of my own presumptions, because I was initially thinking like maybe it's reporting bias. Maybe these people just tend to report more and have the resources to do so. And
Mm-hmm.
but of course, I want to get other people's opinions on it
Mm-hmm.
and see like what exactly is going on with the data that's directly pulled from the state water board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's interesting, and I thought your maps were nice, nice work.
Thank you.
I I mean, I think so. I have some thoughts about this. I think so. I guess, well, one question. So, is this just for ones that reached water bodies, or is it all sewage
I
spills?
think it's all.
Okay,
I think
yeah.
they just updated their reports as well, where they're a little bit more extensive now. Whereas last
Mm-hmm.
year, when I
Mm-hmm.
like was making these maps, they were a lot more like not as informative. But yeah, it's pretty much just all overflows, all
Yeah.
sewage spills, SSS, sanitary sewage spills.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you. So, I mean, spill. So, I guess it's like, what is the question about in terms of environmental justice? Like thinking about the spills themselves, or then the impacts. So, like an impact of a sewage spill can be a little bit hard because it travels, right? So, like, um, the where the source is isn't necessarily where the impact is. So, I mean, and I think scale matters quite a bit too. So, like, if we're talking about, a 2 gallon sewage spill
Mm,
or a, 80 million gallon sewage spill.
right.
So, I think you might, it might be good if you can incorporate volume
Okay.
into your maps potentially. Um, and then the other thought I had was like thinking about where it ends up. So like that you might have to then incorporate whether it actually reached a waterway,
Mm,
and then the impacts of the sewage spill are kind of dictated by at least if they're in the watershed, they're dictated by our storm drain and river system, right? So like, like when we're talking about Dockweiler, like I do think beaches, like you might tend to find more impacts at certain areas as well. So like beach closures. So that could be one way of measuring an impact.
Okay.
Would be like beach or river closures in theory, if they do ever close a river. So like, I mean, Biona Creek, people, they row crew there and do other stuff. So maybe they would. So obviously like places where there's an outlet of a river are probably going to be where a lot of the impacts are felt. Or if we're talking about like wastewater treatment plant failures, like near the outfall of the wastewater treatment plant. So I think that's just something that kind of complicates it a little bit when you're thinking about like the spill versus the impact.
Yeah.
And I know, for instance, like Long Beach, they're at the end of the Ellie River, they're at the end of the San Gabriel River. And so they are kind of pissed because they're like, we keep getting sewage like from the watersheds. We're at the end.
Yeah.
So they're like, I think they might have even filed a lawsuit because they were so sick of like having to deal with the sewage from all of these spills. So, it's kind of interesting in that regard to think about. So, I mean, some of that I think does come down to like an environmental justice too, of like where are wastewater treatment plants placed, or I don't know, like in terms of thinking about the outlets of rivers, if there's something there, because I know that the other thing too that at Heal the Bay we were thinking about trying to do some analyses of like water quality and like EJ communities is our relationship. But then it became so hard because it was like, okay, let's say if we're just talking about beaches, like you have the beach water quality, but how do you figure out the community nearby? Like the people that are going to the beach aren't necessarily just right there, living right there.
Yeah.
They're coming from all over, so you have to really do like a intense analysis. And I think the EPA came up with a list of like Justice 40 beaches where they tried to like identify beaches that were kind of like environmental justice communities that were beaches that were serving environmental justice communities. But again, they did the very crude analysis where it was like, I think they were looking at, something like Columbine screen scores near beaches. And so it was sort of like, so anyway, all that to say, I think it's kind of a bit more complicated in terms of like, source of spill, where that is, and then the impacts, and then also thinking about like scale, I think is important. So maybe those areas have a ton of like little, but maybe, other areas have more. So that could be something interesting to look at volume to see if you see any different pattern there. And then also, think about where the impacts are being. And so if there's like a way to measure that of like beach closure days or exceedances or something like that, maybe too.
Okay. Yeah. I do believe that gallons released is one of their features that they have reported. So I already have the data pulled up. It could just be as simple as like filtering to scale to the gallons released and see how it changes the appearance of the mountain.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just like looking in terms of incidents, and I was like, yeah, that looks really weird. But
Yeah.
thank you so much. Yeah, I'll definitely take all of that into consideration and see like the actual nitty gritty of like what are the actual consequences and people being
Mhm.
affected and places that are being affected. Um, in terms of like the types of spills that are happening,
Yeah.
regardless of
Mhm.
the pinpoint areas of where they're occurring. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I do think that's important, and thank you for bringing that to light because I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Of
Thank
course.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, and then so because my project is all about mostly about environmental injustice and equity issues. I also wrote in the context of sewage spills, how does inequity manifest within our infrastructure and response systems? Is it about where failures occur, how resources are distributed, or who has access to the information?
Um, yeah, I think, I mean, potentially it could be about like where the impacts do occur, and could be kind of inequitable. I think the other thing I was thinking about with equity too is like, especially thinking about this big LA sanitation rate increase, like thinking about equity there in terms of like, I think, and I didn't get into the nitty gritty of this. I think they have some, programs that can offer relief for folks who can't afford those increases.
Okay.
So, like, obviously, we need to, it's hard to be like, yay, rate increases. But I do think they're important to,
Yeah.
like, be able to fund some of these needed upgrades,
Yeah.
but ensuring that they are equitable and that, like, there's programs for low income folks and there's programs for, yeah, people who can't afford them, I think is really important. Um, because I think while those rate increases are big, like they're probably a drop in the bucket to in terms of like the actual upgrades that need to happen. So being able to figure out how to pay for that without just putting the burden back onto people as well
Yeah.
as, and particularly like folks who can't afford it.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing for me in terms of thinking about sewage bills and equity is like access to information, like you had yeah, included there. I think that's a big one. So I think, even just like, I feel like so few people know about water quality or think about it. And like, so when they go to the beach, like if there's a physical sign posted, um, like that's something, but so many people don't even literally see that or know what it means,
Yeah.
or, it might not be that user friendly, or, yeah. So, like, I think thinking how that information can get out to different communities and sort of what's the way that like people receive information well
Mm-hmm.
in different ways, I think is really important.
Yeah, and I think just like giving people that public awareness or informing them is probably also what's important here. Because even in the survey that I distributed, I got that like 42% of the respondents were not aware at all of
Mm-hmm.
our local sewage issues and the fact that they are an ongoing issue. And then
Yeah,
they
yeah,
also reported, at least a fourth of them reported that they had never heard of such an incident happening here locally. So that kind of does fall in line with like my initial claims because I don't know, like just kind of speaking on myself and being an Angelino. I was like, this is something that happens underneath our noses and nobody knows about it. But
Totally.
of course, I can't talk for the whole community, but
Yeah.
it does seem to be the case that a good portion of our community here in the county is not even aware of what's happening, but yet like the consequences still linger, and it's not something that's just like we can ignore and it's gonna go away, or like, you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's
Yep.
like
Yeah, I
it's
totally
actually
agree.
happening.
Mm-hmm.
But
For
yeah,
sure.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
And then for question number 9, how do you think community voices, especially from marginalized areas, can be better integrated into decision making about water infrastructure and pollution response, if any?
Yeah. I mean, I think going back to like thinking about that sort of coalition building, I think would be important, and ensuring that there's environmental justice groups involved, who can then reach out to, you know, communities that maybe other groups don't have access or connections to would be important. So like having sort of trusted members or trusted messengers is important. I also think that programs like the Safe Clean Water program can be a good place to do some of this too. I mean, that's like, I guess, kind of more stormwater focused, but again, like it's all connected, and the stormwater system is like our conveyance
Goes into the
for
ocean.
sewage spills often. So I think that could be, you know, I think it already is a good way, and I know there's like a big grants program for community outreach and education, and so maybe you know, I don't know that they would necessarily just focus on sewage, but again, like kind of integrating it into the whole system. I think there's opportunities there, and all the groups that helped come together to pass the Measure W that led to the Safe Clean Water. Like that was a huge coalition that was like really well-rounded in terms of different types of groups. There was like, you know, labor groups, there were environmental justice groups, there were the sort of, you know, big green environmental groups. So I think leveraging some of those folks to like, so how do you integrate them people into it? I don't know exactly, except maybe it's like doing kind of a regular drumbeat of like education, inviting people to attend these public meetings, give public comment, like when there is like a rate increase, or when there is a report about upgrades, things like that, I think would be, you know, important.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that as well.
Yeah.
And then just kind of wrapping up with like the final 2 questions that are pretty
Yeah.
quick. I also wanted to come to you and ask, like, if there's anybody else that you would recommend that I can consult with in terms of like helping with this research topic, or things that we couldn't really necessarily cover today in the interview, because I realize it's like a super like interconnected issue that involves a lot of parties. I was wondering if there's anybody in your network that maybe you would recommend that I can reach out to and maybe also have a conversation with for this.
I mean, it sounds like you've already I would have suggested like water board staff. I'm trying to remember. I know they did it. Actually, they did an analysis on sewage spills too at some point. I don't remember the details. But like Jenny Newman at the water board she's pretty high up. She's somebody that could be good to reach out to.
Okay.
And then I don't know if you talked to anyone else at Hilda Bay, like Annalisa or Naomi could be good to talk to too. I mean, Annalisa has a good policy kind of regulatory background. So she might be good.
Okay.
And then I don't know, have you talked to anyone at LA Waterkeeper?
I haven't talked to anybody from LA Waterkeeper. I pretty much, like, for my program, I'm they want me to cap it at 3 interviews, so I've been kind of selective in
Okay, yeah,
case
yeah.
in case I overboard myself with like
That
too
makes
many
sense.
people
Yeah.
getting agreement. But
Yeah, no,
I'm moving.
I mean, you could talk to a million people, I'm
I know
sure,
I'm moving
easily.
little by little,
Okay.
and trying
Yeah.
to just work my way through
Okay.
my
Well, yeah,
curriculum.
if you do feel like LA Waterkeeper Ben Harris,
Ben Harris,
it would
okay.
be good to talk to. And then, yeah, I think LA County San or LA Sanitation, Department of Public Health would be good too, although I don't
Okay.
like their staff all turned over, so I don't really have contacts there. The other thing
Okay.
with LA Sanitation is that our former CEO, Shelley Luce, she was hired on as a consult. So she left Teal the Bay and moved to Canada and has been doing consulting for LA Sanitation. And so she was actually like doing some of the work around that Hyperion 2021 report for them. So she might be somebody that you could reach out to at least see if she can also help direct you of who to talk to, because she's a consultant, so she probably wouldn't feel the best person to interview.
Okay.
Well, I'm sure she'd be great to interview. She's great, but
Okay.
like if you wanted Ellie Sand, but she could be someone to talk to. So, yeah, I can share her info if you need it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, those are the things the folks I thought about, or the agencies.
Yeah, and I would appreciate any of the contact information
Okay.
that you can offer to be sent my way. This is just like something that I am. Again, it's a matter of like polyvocality and trying to get as many people's voices into the matter and into the research, just so that it's like fully well-rounded and we understand like the basis of what exactly is happening in terms of this topic. So yeah, that would be really valuable.
Yeah. Okay.
And then
Yeah, happy to.
something else that I just wanted to make sure that I am taking your insights in mind and being respectful of what you've provided here for me today. I was wondering if you have time, or if you're okay, if you're if you're open to reviewing how I incorporate your insights into my capstone research once it's complete, just to ensure that I've accurately represented everything that we've discussed today on your part.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Yeah.
Okay, and then I can also have that sent your way. I do have like a month left into my program, but just be aware. I will send that over before it becomes a final draft for submission.
Okay.
Because that is important to me, that I'm not like misinterpreting or confused in any one section, because I do want to represent everybody's voices as accurately and as well as possible, because at the end of the day, like, this very much is a project about people's voices, and if I can't accurately represent people's voices due to my own positionalities, then I'm not doing my job right. So yeah, it would be good if you could just review your section. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for your time and your support, and it means a lot to me, and I'm like through the roof that people would agree to help pitch in and talk about these issues. But before I let you go, I just want to make sure, are there any like other comments or questions that you have for me, or like even if you want to leave it off on like a positive note and like a piece of advice before I just like let you go and do your thing.
Gosh. Not that I can think of. No, I mean, I guess I think it's a cool topic. Like, I find sewage spills, well, obviously horrible, very interesting.
Yep.
And so I think it's just great to see you taking this on, and I'm excited to see what you find and come up with.
Thank you. Well, yeah, it's not a glamorous issue, but we gotta pay attention to it, you know. So
Yeah,
somebody's
for
gotta
sure.
pull the weight. But thank you again so
Well,
much, and
yeah.
I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll stay in touch with you.
Okay, sounds great. All right, thanks. You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.